Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Slappin Kpop podcast. I am Kayla, and today I am joined with Sammi.
Hello.
And we are here to review the new Netflix Korean movie, Love and Leashes. And I will tell you, we literally remade our podcast schedule in order to cover this movie because when we found out it existed, we were like, okay, I think we need to talk about this
immediately.
We have to. Like, there's no other options here.
Here's the thing. We found out about this movie maybe about a month ago, right?
Probably, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. When the Netflix trailer came out, and we're like,
what on earth
in the world is this? Why are we doing this?
But, like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, like, what is the point here? What is the tone first? And we're like, we need to cover this. So we had to literally rearrange episodes. Like, we watched this movie yesterday.
Mm-hmm. The day it came out. Yep.
We're recording it the day after it came out.
Which, it's a lot.
A whole lot. It's a whole lot.
It's a lot. Also, I think another thing that was really interesting to us was the casting of this movie to begin with.
Oh, yes. So our two main leads are played by... Our female lead is played by Seohyun of Girls' Generation. And our male lead is played by an actor we keep seeing.
We keep seeing
in these podcast episodes. And we'll see more of.
He keeps coming back.
It's played by Lee Junyoung, member of U-Kiss, for like one comeback.
Yep, for a hot second.
And also was in U&B, and also was in Imitation.
Also in Let Me Be Your Night, and playing the exact same character that he played in Imitation in that show.
We'll talk about Let Me Be Your Night in like 2 months.
We will.
Okay?
We'll get there eventually. This man is my anti-bias of acting, I swear to God, because every single show I have seen him in, I have hated. And
we're not having a good time.
It's not good. It's not a good time.
But also the fact that, so for anybody that doesn't know, Love and Leashes is, the only way to describe it is the BDSM K-drama, but
not sexual.
Not about sex.
In the slightest.
It's not. It is the not sexual version of BDSM, which is just about like they're not having sex, but also I think it's implied that they want to have sex. It's so much.
It's weird because it's weird. The whole thing is weird. I think it's like a one side of it wants to have sex and the other half does not want to have sex, which is we'll get to it later.
We'll get to a lot of these power dynamics really pretty quickly, but also the fact that like this entire movie has no idea about this type of relationship at all.
Oh, so also
it's insane.
I want to point out that this movie was based off of a webcomic, and when I heard that, I went and I read like some of the webcomic, and it's like the movie I guess is like pretty similar vibe-wise to the webcomic. I think the webcomic is more comedic than this actual movie is, because the other thing is that this movie was very much marketed as a rom-com, and it's not a rom-com at all. It's got like a couple of funny moments, but it's just a drama.
So
like the show is a drama.
Weird way, I think. So overall, I think you can tell that we did not like this movie at all. We are not fans. We did not enjoy it. But also the fact that I do think that this movie would have almost been better if it was more of a ridiculous rom-com, because it is not. This movie takes everything it's doing very, very seriously.
Yep.
Which I think is its biggest problem.
I think that's the problem. I think it would have, if we went more heavy into the comedy aspect of it, I think maybe you get something better out of this.
As opposed to what we are left with, which is just what seems like it's trying to tell an actual story about BDSM with absolutely no idea what BDSM is. No actual idea of how any of this works.
Yeah, so we have compiled a list of reasons why this movie is bad.
And in true Netflix style, we've compiled 13 reasons why this movie sucks.
Yes.
This is our 13 reasons,
These are
everyone.
our 13 reasons why this movie is terrible. They're pretty good. They're gonna go pretty chronologically in order of like course of the movie because we wrote
this will be sort of a chronological like description of the movie. Yeah. Semi-chronological. We'll jump around a little bit. Mm-hmm. I would say I recommend people watch the movie before watching this, but I also can't in good conscience tell anyone to watch this movie. So just like
if you'll get the gist of it. Like I get it because I could barely watch this movie. I had to stop about every 5 minutes and scream a little bit every time I was watching this movie.
Very much was only able to watch this because I got out of work early and then was just on a Discord call with Kayla while watching this and just losing my mind.
I watched it by myself beforehand and I like barely got through it. I had to put it on 1.5 speed halfway through and then like also start skipping because I'm like, I can't watch this. Like I literally cannot watch this
will say I did with the moral support. I did watch all of it. I did sit through the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So, like, any scene that Kayla skipped, I have unfortunately watched all the way through.
The end, like, third of the movie gets, like, hella boring.
The end third of the movie is very boring.
Yeah.
The weird thing with this movie, and that's just sort of the thing with it, is that for as much as this premise seems like it'd be too much story to tell, it's not enough. This movie is 2 hours long.
It doesn't need to be 2 hours long, this movie.
I was so fucking bored.
So boring. It's weirdly, like, incredibly cringe and, like, also incredibly boring simultaneously. And it's like it switches off between either being incredibly cringe and I can't watch this or, like, I am bored out of my mind. And there's no in between in this entire movie.
It was just one of those where, like, you're watching everything occur. And you're like, okay, fine, whatever. And then you just get to certain like nothing happens and then too much and then like you get a scene where it's like, how did we get here? Why are all these random things happening?
Yeah, it's bad. It was bad. I didn't come into this movie thinking it was going to be good in the first place, and we're covering it specifically because we thought it was going to be really bad, but it's like bad
in a different way than I expected.
Ways. Yeah.
I thought that I would be able to talk about how ridiculous this movie is and how like it's funny and stupid. Mm-hmm. It's not. The thing, and the fact that it takes itself so seriously almost makes me hate it more because it's so incredibly problematic in that way. Yeah. But let's just start literally from the first line. Our first reason. Mm-hmm. The literal first line of this movie.
The thesis statement for the themes of the movie, essentially.
Which I think is the thesis statement. Which, again, you've decided to open this movie with this line of, no relationship in this world is perfectly equal. Intentional or not, power always shifts between either of them. Maybe we all have these hidden desires to either dominate or submit to someone. Which, in theory, is a true statement. Fair. Most times there is a slight power imbalance between two people in a relationship. But this also seems to imply that in a dominant and submissive relationship, that should be a relationship where these people hold equal power. This is consensual, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like this, everyone here is having a good time, right? Please?
It's like, and it's also like weirdly implying that almost every single relationship is weirdly like a dominant submissive relationship, which is like, I don't think that's correct at all.
That's also like some like one can almost in a different way, like it just seems almost, I have no idea what because here's my then is going to.
Here's my other thing with this is I think also the movie is trying to make this point that like a regular normal person is like essentially wants this type of relationship because they essentially
in a way, yes,
are portraying Seohyun, like the main character. I actually don't even know the characters' names, to be honest. It was not important. I know they have similar names, but like because that's a plot point.
Yes. So Seohyun's character is Jung Ji-woo, and Lee Junyoung's character is Jung Ji-ho. Sorry. And the fact that they both have similar names is sort of, we'll get to that.
It's a needed plot point or whatever.
But also, we are just gonna call them Seohyun and
Junyoung, probably
Junyoung, because that's who they are, and they're both sort of
again, like pretty well known actors or idol, K-pop idols, whatever you want to call them.
Again, and also my our continual habit of just, like, any type of Korean actor in any sort of drama or anything, I end up calling by their
just
full
like
name anyway,
full name,
not by their character name. Even in a good show, which is
Yep.
you know, that's fine. That's just sort of a thing. We see them in too many different roles.
Yep. But
So,
they're trying to make the point that it's like, here's this regular woman, and she was kind of against her will dragged into this relationship with this other man.
In a way.
It's like, and I feel like it's trying to show us that, like, it's not weird if you just give it a chance. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's true, because
also,
I think a normal person, a lot of other people would be very freaked out by it, and that's perfectly fine.
And that's perfectly fine. They don't need to participate. And yes, no, it is perfectly valid if you choose this lifestyle. Like, you do you. I'm not here to kink shame anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But also, this movie is a bad representation of what this community is.
It's bad. This is like where it's like, I don't think we're ever gonna get a piece of media that is like a good representation of it ever. Unfortunately,
unless it's actually made by the community, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume, but like that also just, it's so much.
It's really bad.
So generally speaking, chronologically, these two meet at work.
Yep.
So much of this takes place at their workplace.
That's okay. So kind of leads into number 2, where it's like, this is taking place at a corporate setting, but it's important to know, and it's also like,
continuously in the background.
It's told to you in the movie, and also is like not important, but it makes the movie very bizarre. Is that they work for a company that provides, like, it's like a children's entertainment company.
It's like a children's mascot.
I think they do like children's like programming or TV programming or something. I think it's
like a little, like, similar to like a children's, like a Disney Junior children's cartoon.
Yeah.
But also it has like other, like, it has like stuffed animals.
It has a mascot.
Books.
The mascot will be in the movie a lot.
Yeah.
The fact that this is a company they're working at adds a horrible undertone to the entirety of this movie. That these two work at a children's company, and so much of what they're doing, they are doing at their place of work.
Yes. Like, because it's one thing because I would be uncomfortable with any work, like, this being said at any workplace.
Yeah, number 1, you shouldn't be doing any of this at your place of work to begin with. Like, that's already bad.
That's just immediately very, like, inconsiderate to the fact of, like, you are in not just public, but at your place of work, be slightly more professional. But also the fact that, like, into the background, you'll just see something related to children in this BDSM movie is off-putting to me. Yes. And also, there are multiple scenes where, like, there's very few scenes. There's no actual child in this movie, thankfully, that has a single line. Yes. But there are a bunch of children in the background of scenes sometimes.
There are.
And it's weird.
And this mascot for whatever place that they work at is also going to be there a lot. And at one point, Seohyun has, like, a giant stuffed animal of it and, like, practices, like, bondage on it. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, I don't think I like that. That's kind of
just like if you practice bondage on, like, Mickey Mouse. It's weird. I don't like it. It gives me weird implications, and I'm not a fan.
Yep. Because the other thing with them because back to this, like, them just working at a corporate setting, the main inciting incident of this movie is the fact that he gets his weird collar sent to his place of work. And I'm like, why are you sending your weird, like, kink stuff to your place of work? Like, that, and it acts like, why are you doing that?
And since they both have similar names, it accidentally gets delivered to her, which, again, lady, read your mail more.
Yeah. Maybe, like, actually read your mail. Yeah. It's like...
And she opens it and just sees that it's a collar, and he's, like, freaked out by it. And my thing is just, like, that is entirely inappropriate to have that. Like, that is immediately, I know it was an accident, it's probably not sexual harassment, but you should not have that at all sent to your place of business.
Because I think that just doing that in general, getting it sent to your work, is probably considered inappropriate. Like, that is absolutely, like, why are you doing that? Like, this entire movie wouldn't have happened if you just, like, sent that to your own address. Like,
send that, because then it just implies some things, like, if you're thinking about it logically, like, is that also part of the kink?
I think so, because half of it, because like they do like he's into like public embarrassment, as we'll later
That's what
learn.
I'm saying.
But
like, is this part of like? Because that also is fucked up. Because at least in the public embarrassment that he has with her later in the movie, she's aware of it.
mm-hmm.
He's just bringing, because like if part of his thing is like, oh, maybe it'll get mixed up, maybe so da 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 da. With that, I'm like, that is just bringing someone unwillingly into this, and that is weirdly manipulative.
Yep, it is.
Which then goes on to our third reason, which is somehow he is the submissive, and I still feel like she's the one being harassed.
Yes, it's so weird how they managed to make that happen as well, because
somehow we've bent it over backwards.
Yeah,
and she is still the woman is still somehow being harassed.
Yep. And it's like, because it's like, I almost feel like Seohyun was like a normal person. She was just trying to be nice and to not shame him for like this thing she had accidentally stumbled upon. And he sort of takes that kindness and is like, because she's okay with it, let me ask her to be my master or whatever.
My mistress in a way. And I'm like, she is in no way, she's just been nice. Because the man also has a lot...
He's got a lot of problems. A lot of problems.
He has no self-esteem, but also has like weirdly, because he is already apparently a part of this community, at least in like an
online
setting.
Forum kind of sense. Yeah.
Yes, it's never fully implied if he's ever had someone, because we'll find out later with his ex-girlfriend, which is another reason why. Mm-hmm. But we find out later from his ex-girlfriend that she didn't participate. So, thinking back on it, has he ever had anybody actually do this to him?
No, I don't think he has.
I don't think so.
The thing with the ex-girlfriend is he told her about his weird like kink about it, and then she like shamed him for it, and so now he has this entire inferiority complex about it that people think he's a pervert for it.
Which is like, that's a thing, like that is a way to take the story, and that would be a perfectly like fine way to take the story if that's what we were doing, but it seems also like a side plot,
because it adds like an extra weird layer to everything happening, rather than it just being like a first time thing that he wants to try out, that he has this like massive amount of past trauma from an ex about it, where it's like it really complicates like his own feelings, and then I think also what they're trying to portray in the movie, because it a lot of things get mixed in the fact that he wants to be accepted for it, but it's not. But it's also because of like a past relationship that where he got shamed, and rather than it just being like him being into it in general. So there's a lot of like things that I think go wrong when both of those are happening in the story.
Yeah, and so after this whole awkward interaction where she is just like, "Hey, I'm not shaming you for it." But also, I feel like she was far more understanding than most people would be.
Yes.
Like, she's being very, like, she's doing nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. She is being very understanding, but then he is also just being like, so you're into it. And I'm like, it's not what she said. That is not what she said.
Absolutely not. Just because she's understanding of it does not mean she wants to be a willing participant. Of this. And I almost feel like she gets into this relationship to him in a way because... It's number one, I think she feels kind of sad for him because he is a little kind of pathetic in their first like couple of encounters. And number two is I think she likes him in a more like regular relationship type of way, and is going out of her way to try to get him to be in an actual relationship eventually.
Because it is implied from, like, earlier scenes, by, like, that I mean, like, the 3 earlier scenes that we have, that he, like, the women in this office do flirt with him.
Yeah.
Like, he is quite decently popular, at least where they're like, oh, he's cute, da-da-da. He's very
like cute, he's attractive, he's, like, good at his job or whatever, and he's, like, whatever,
And, like, she just, like, will, like, look at him, and I'm like, oh, I could see there being, like, a weird flirtation there. But also, he is just, like, not giving anybody the time of day.
Mm-hmm.
Which then goes on to the next point I just want to point out about this show is, where was the research? That is our fourth reason.
The research is that there was no research done. It's the answer to that.
Because Also saying that, like, you're getting into a BDSM relationship not because you want to, but because you want to date this other guy is also not how that works.
No, that's
and
also like a little
unhealthy
bit
way to do this
bad.
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not how that works. And also the fact that, like, he's like, I want you to be my mistress, and then just sort of like throws that at her and then proceeds to give her nothing. She does all of this Google searching.
She does Google research about it. Yeah.
And then just decides, yeah, no, I'm just gonna blindfold this man.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just gonna go from there.
It's like she does like a couple days worth of Google researching, and because she knows that she sort of has to be the dominant in the relationship, she apparently gets the idea that she can't look like she doesn't know what she's doing and needs help. So this is like the blind leading the blind at this point.
Because also, he is just not at all, like, helping her. Like, it's essentially just putting submissives in the role of, like, I am helpless.
Yeah.
Which is not what that means.
Because this is, like, not at all, like, how you have to go about that in a relationship.
No.
Like, you can have it where, like, the submissive is, like, the more experienced one, but then, like, that involves, like, you, like, some leading of, like, how you want things to go.
How you do this.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing I want to point out before we get too far into this, that Kayla and I are neither of us a part of this community.
No.
We are talking entirely of our own research, like, our own, like, we have seen things and done our own research and just, like, seen actual people from this community talk about it.
Yeah, because so I did, weirdly, a decent amount of research into this after 50 Shades of Grey, the movie came out, because I was just, like, curious, because I'm like, this is definitely a bad representation of this, so I was curious about, like, what people thought and, like, what it was, more actually like. So and, I have, like, a weird, like, I do know about it a little bit.
As do I. We are in no way experts, but, like, if you are curious, I do think that there are a lot of very, just you know, YouTube it, and you'll find a lot of much more experienced, much better sources on this who would walk you through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
We are not those people, but I just know that this is bad representation of not just this type of relationship, but any type of relationship.
It's just a bad relationship as a whole, yeah.
It's just like, even taking away the BDSM element of it, it's just a bad relationship, like, between two people. Like, this is not a healthy relationship. No. And you'll see more as we go on that it's just not healthy.
Another thing with this lack of just research doing it is that when they sign a contract for it, she essentially admits that she found a generic contract online and printed it out and barely changed it and handed it to him. And I'm like, that is definitely not what you should be doing for that.
No.
Especially because there's a line in there, which I'm pretty sure she, like, probably purposely left it in there about if we're having sex, it has to be consented to by both parties. And he reads that and is, like, kind of shaken about it. And she was just like, oh, yeah, I just printed this out from the internet. And he makes it pretty known that it's like he doesn't want any sex aspect of it at all.
Yeah, because he's not into this for the sex aspect. He's into it for the
humiliation, submission
aspect. Yeah. Which is fine. There are a lot of that in the community. It does not all have to be sex-based. A lot of it is, and a lot of it is not. It depends on the person, and again, we're not here to kink shame anybody. All of that is valid for everyone. Mm-hmm. But just generally speaking, I just think it's very odd how this movie decides to portray, especially, and this goes on to our fifth reason, submissives.
Mm-hmm.
Because in their first interaction, right before the contract happens, she takes him she does her, like, 2 days of Googling and is like, okay, I think I could do this. Having never tried anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just is like, yeah, no, I think I could do this. And then proceeds to take him into a weird, at their workplace.
This is happening at their place of work.
Yep. This is happening at their place of work. That they are going to go into, like, this back office. Considering the fact that neither of them have a private office, they all work in cubicles, they go into a random back room. And she blindfolds him. And then just sort of has him talk about why he wants to do this. And just sort of the way that they are talking about submissives, I think this movie thinks that there's something wrong with him for liking this.
That's the thing, is like, because clearly the movie is supposed to be about that, like, I feel like, because the thing is, like, he is trying to be more confident and, like, not ashamed of it, but the way that the movie is deciding to portray it, it's like, it's hard to come out of watching this movie and think that he's not a weirdo. Like, they make him look so bad in this entire movie.
And that's not because, like, being a submissive is weird. That is entirely because this
specific man got so many problems.
And also so many problems that I do not think it is healthy to be taking them out in this manner.
No.
Like, I do think that this man should maybe see a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like he has more self-esteem issues.
He's got a lot of that.
As opposed to, like, hey, we should be doing this as just, like, I don't know. It's just off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just feels like he needs different help.
He does. I feel like, because this is, like, also the first type of relationship he's, like, been in, like, this before, I don't think he's fully aware of what he wants either. And because this other girl is literally less experienced than him, she doesn't know what he wants either. And so it's like
neither of them are fully
the communication
aware of
is,
what
like,
you
bad
can do.
both ways, too.
Yeah. Plus the fact of, like, we can move this up a little bit to our sixth reason, which is communication where.
Yeah.
Because these two then proceed to have this type of relationship and do not communicate likes or dislikes. They just sort of go.
Yes.
They just sort of continue doing this. They don't really talk about their relationship as friends or people.
It seems like all they do is they like schedule a time that they're gonna do stuff, and then they do the stuff, and then that's it. And then we're gonna repeat that about 10 times.
Oh, yeah.
And that's essentially the extent of the communication that happens between them about their relationship together, until, like, more towards the end of the movie, where the communication is still pretty bad, but there's at least a little bit more of something there at that point.
They have to talk.
Mm-hmm. Because it gets to the point where she wants to be in a relationship, and he's like, I don't date people. And it's like, and that is, like, the most they've ever communicated.
Plus the fact that, like, that's not actually a new fact. He did come into this saying, like, this is not, I am here for this.
Mm-hmm.
I am not here to date anybody. I am just here for this specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, he fully did tell you this.
Yeah.
This isn't new.
He, like, was fully, like, he fully told her, he was like, I don't see you in a sexual way at all. This is, like, the extent of what I want out of this. And so he was at least clear about that. But I think she's kind of, like, in the weird position where she's like, yeah, he says this, but maybe he'll change his mind later. Maybe I can change him. Yeah.
That's great. Love that for a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So now we move on to two big pet peeves I have with this man's character. So, one, our seventh reason is that he is not an actual dog.
No.
So there's a weird side plot where Seohyun's best friend owns, like, this doggy daycare with actual, like,
or it's like a dog cafe, or it's something like that.
I don't know. It's like either doggy, like, something. It's very cute. There's a lot of cute dogs in those scenes. But, like, they continuously go back to this and just show you actual dogs.
And then there's a lot of sound effects of, like, just barking dogs as well.
And, like, we'll get to the infamous scene in a minute. Like, I want to just describe the scene around it, which is just the fact of, like, continuously they, especially in the beginning when he first thinks that she, is also into this, he's like, yeah, just treat me like a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's a little forward, sir. That's very forward. Like, have a conversation about this.
Yep.
And then we get to the worst scene of anything I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time that they decide that they're actually going to do this not at their place of work, dear God, not at your place of work. Stop doing this at your place of work. But they go to this hotel, and she puts him in a collar and a leash, and is like, okay, dog, like, they're talking, he's on his knees, he's acting like a dog, and he's like, okay, dogs don't talk, so he just starts barking.
Yep.
And then we have, I genuinely hate it, he has to eat, I think they're like,
I don't know what they are. There's just some type of cookies or something. Yeah.
Out of her hand.
This is the start of the parts of the movie where I'm like, I cannot watch this. Like, I literally, I can't. Like, I cannot watch this. That was the beginning of this scene.
And then as we go on, I think they're in a love motel because I can only imagine that's why someone is having sex so fucking loudly. But the next door neighbors are having sex.
Yep.
And he just goes into weird dog overdrive and starts barking incessantly for a good 2 minutes.
Like, it was so aggressive.
Barking,
so aggressive
growling,
about it.
Like full dog.
Full dog. He is
full dog.
Full dog.
And I was just, and like, she's trying to like control him. And I'm just like, what the fuck? This is pet play.
That entire scene, I was just like, I cannot believe this is happening right now.
I was having just like a breakdown at that point. Because at this point, like, we'd seen so much dog imagery. Mm-hmm. And I thought that this was just
and we knew the dog collar and everything. And it was like, whatever.
I just assumed that this was this movie fully not understanding what a submissive was.
Right.
I didn't think that
we were going to go
did not think we were going full
dog.
Play.
Yeah.
Full pet play. And I'm like, what are we doing?
I also want to bring up this movie. There's a 2011 South Korean movie called You're My Pet, which is, I think, almost the original version of this movie. Because I almost feel like this movie is an updated version of it, because this movie is a lot worse, which essentially the plot of that movie is that this woman gets divorced, and then she finds a homeless man, essentially, in a box outside her apartment, and then she takes him in, and then as a joke tells him that, I want to keep you as a pet. And the man says yes. And so she sort of just has him living in her apartment as a literal dog almost. Yeah. Gives him the name of literally the dog from her childhood. And then that happens or whatever. And then it kind of grows from there into like actually kind of turning into like a romantic sexual relationship. But it's like this movie, like with as much as it went into the full dog imagery, reminded me of that because it's like, I forgot that we have done this before in South Korean films. And so,
yeah, this movie just is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to point out is that this 8th reason, this man is not actually a child.
No. He is a full-grown adult, this man.
He's a full-grown adult.
He has a corporate job.
He does have a corporate job, and also he is fully able to consent to everything. But the other implication a lot that they have about him is that he continues to just be like, yeah, I don't want to act mature. I want to be... And just the way that they're phrasing it is that, like, a lot of times in these BDSM relationships, it's not so much about maturity, it's about control. Mm-hmm. And I just think that maybe it was a translation issue or whatever, but, like, the way that they're talking about it means that he almost wants to be more childlike. Like, also, especially we just find him, like, at times just, like, whimpering and crying outside of, like, a car. The fact that they're constantly around children's imagery doesn't help.
Yes, that's 100% adding to, like, this man is immature and a child, yeah.
Yeah, which, again, gives me a weird implication about what this movie thinks about submissives in these dynamics. Because, like, it's one thing if he were to say, like, oh, I want to be, because I have this corporate job, but in these situations, I don't want to be so in control all the time.
Right, right.
That's different. That makes sense. That is sort of almost how this kind of would work.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, I don't want to be mature and an adult.
This is like
sir,
this is literally
this
like
is an
stemming,
adult situation.
It's like stemming, I think, from some type of childhood trauma where, like, he needs to actually be told what to do by someone, or else he doesn't know how to function in life.
Yeah. Which is an entirely different dynamic.
Because
that's not what BDSM is in a way. Like, it just seems like this movie is very confused.
Yeah, so the other thing I will say is, like, I give the movie a little bit of leeway because the source material they were adapting from was this bad to begin with. So they didn't take that and they ruined it. They took a bad source material and then adapted it and then it became a bad movie. Because I remember I read it, like, the first, like, I don't know, 15 or 20 chapters and then skimmed a couple other ones in there just to get an idea for, like, what that was about. And it essentially says he developed this complex because he was always, like, a good kid growing up, and his mom would go tell him to do stuff or do chores, and he would always get praised for that. And for somehow he carried that entire complex through his adult life as well. And that's why he is like this.
What are we doing?
It's like, why? Like, why? But why?
Why? Why are we doing this? Which, again, I just think that, like, you had the opportunity in this adaptation to also change the source material, because we have no mention of this backstory at all in the movie. At all, in any capacity.
Because I honestly don't remember if they worked for, like, a children's company in the webtoon. But if they did, 100% they should have changed that for this movie. Because that, I think, even if that was the source material, I'm like, you need to change that, because that just gives this entire movie, like, bad, like, implications and, like, back tone every time that we go back to the corporate setting, and then knowing that it's, like, essentially a children's, like, related programming company.
Oh, yeah. It's just too much.
It's a lot.
So then we get to our next reason, which is just to take a quick break from our main plot, which I think at this point we're getting to, like, the actual, like, meat of the story, to talk very quickly about the two side plots.
Mm-hmm. The two side plots that add absolutely nothing to this movie.
One side plot we can talk about very quickly. For some reason, Kim Bura is in this movie for 2 scenes.
Mm-hmm.
She plays his ex-girlfriend.
Yep.
Kim Bura, who you might recognize as the girl from Sky Castle.
Mm-hmm.
Great. But I'm going to put it out there. She plays Junyoung's ex-girlfriend, who kink-shamed him and then gave him this complex. And then so we get her in, like, a dream sequence.
Right.
Which is fine. That's whatever. That's like, okay, great, this is your ex-girlfriend. And then she comes back for one scene where she's almost trying to get back together with him, and is just like, have you gotten over this? And I'm like, what the why are you here?
It was really, really pointless, because we see so little of her, and she literally just shows up at his apartment right before Seohyun's about to get there. Kink shames him again, and then leaves. And I'm like, this was like adding nothing.
That was a pointless scene.
Adding absolutely nothing.
That's entirely where this show goes. Like,
yeah.
That's entirely where that plot is and dies.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing we get is a really random, pointless scene where Seohyun's best friend, the owner of this doggy daycare cafe thing, is just, she goes on a bunch of dates, and one of these dates is with this really creepy dude who takes her to, like, a BDSM motel and tries to rape her.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and also
that is mainly for, we'll get to why that is, like, what I think the point of that scene is.
Yeah.
When we talk about our fun montage of what the fuck are we doing. But, what the this woman, I want to specifically talk about how Seohyun has no idea
how to react in emergency situations at all. Like, absolutely, like, the fucking worst.
I'm sorry. If I were to call one of my female best friends, and I don't immediately, you pick up, and I'm not saying, hello, how are you? And you just hear me say some trigger words like, oh, big strong man, you're into here's my
exact location.
Fantasy?
Here's where I am.
This is where I am.
We're in this hotel in this room.
I'm sorry.
That's what I call the police, and then probably also going to help. Yeah.
No, what she decides to do is just loudly on the phone be like, hey, girl, what's going on? Did you accidentally call me? I'm like, and alert this man that there is someone on the phone. And I'm like, what are you doing?
It's like the worst. Literally the worst.
Seohyun is, have you ever heard the TikTok recently, Kayla, of, hey, what do you do when you need, like, what do you yell if you need help? The answer's fire. And if you say help, you're a man. Yes. She'd yell help.
Yep, she would.
She would yell help.
Yep.
Yeah, no, this is like, that's
terrible.
Like, I'm sorry, that is like basic lesson number 1. So the side plots,
like, it's so bad. The side plots are adding.
Oh, and
nothing.
then they actually get to the place where this guy is, like, possibly gonna rape their friend. She's fine. She just had a taser in her bag. He's all tied up like a. She's all hog-tied on the bed, and we moved on.
This friend just carries, like, a whole bunch of rope around in her purse,
and also a
reason.
taser.
Yeah.
And then we moved on, and nothing happened, and
nothing.
She's just upset that for some reason, like, oh, she put an ad on this dating website that she was into BDSM, and a bunch of the guys just sent her dick pics. I'm like, yes,
yeah,
great. What is the point of the scene?
No. It's like, because it's like, maybe the side plots would have been helpful if we got literally something of use out of any of them, but they happen one, like we get one scene out of the side plots, and then that's all we get for the whole thing.
Look, in this 2-hour movie, we were not able to develop a single side character beyond knowing possibly what their name is.
Yeah. Yep. Because there's so much in this film where they're just having conversations that, like, we don't need to see. Like, we don't need to see them having a business meeting right now. Like, this is not adding anything to the plot.
Oh, no. So, now we get to our 10th reason, which, again, goes back to that BDSM motel, which is, our 10th reason is, where the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Because, so, we get a montage of them just going through different kinks and just doing different things. In each individual montage, they are in a very elaborately decorated, I'm assuming, hotel room, because we see both of their apartments. Both of their apartments are not that interesting to look at. They're actually,
no, they look very fancy, and like one of them looks essentially like the Red Room from 50 Shades of Grey, and it's like, what? Like, where are we? Like, we're clearly,
one of them is just happening in a. One of them is almost what appears to be a dream sequence, because she's also kind of wearing like full, like, imagine what like BDSM gear what you think of when you think of BDSM gear, like
BDSM, like lingerie, essentially.
Yeah. And he's just in in a harness, like, picture your K-pop boy harness, but in a, like, actually in a sexy way, using it in a sex way, and she's like whipping him, but he's in front of what appears to be a glass panel, and like everything else is just the lights are red, but most of the screen is a black void, and I'm like, is this a dream sequence? What the fuck is happening?
Yeah, it's like, because also when we're going through this montage, like, he's in a ball gag in one of these too, and I'm just like, this is also the point in the movie where I just had to stop every 5 minutes and just scream internally a little bit, because I'm like, I can't with this. Like, we can't be doing this.
I really can't.
I cannot.
I really cannot. The next reason, number 11, is how the fuck is she learning to do all of this? Because they go through a lot of different kinks.
Yes.
And this woman just kind of, so early in this movie, she is running and she sees that within running distance of her home, there is a sex shop that she just walks by, sees in the window, and is intrigued by. And I'm like, okay. That happens pretty early in the film, and as the film goes on, she, like, keeps going back and buying, like, 1 or 2 things from it. My thing is, where is she learning to use this? Because I'm sorry, she buys, like, a candle and, like, pours wax on him. That's not safe if you don't know what you're doing.
Yep.
She whips him. That's not safe if you don't know what you're
doing.
So
many of the things that they're doing can be so dangerous if you're just doing it because you're watching a video and have no idea what you're doing at all.
The one that I think is probably my least favorite, because at least with the wax, I feel like, generally speaking, like, it's, at least it's not like an actual candle. Like, it's specifically wax from a sex shop as opposed to wax from a candle from, like, Bath and Body Works. Those are different types of candles.
Yep.
Different types of wax, and one of those can probably burn you much more. But the one that bothered me the most is that at some point they're in the movie, about halfway through, they're celebrating her birthday, and he gets her a pair of shoes, a pair of high heels, and she then proceeds to step on his back
a bunch of times.
Just with the heel part.
Yep.
And my thing is that this was also not planned.
No.
This is an impromptu thing. That's so because you see later that he has like a
whole bunch of bruises and actual cuts on his back.
There are cuts on his back, and he wasn't shirtless when this happened. He was wearing just wearing a dress shirt. But, like, that's still whatever. Like, they're not bruises. They're full cuts on his back. And I'm like, this can't be, like, this doesn't seem safe.
No. Nope. None of what we're doing is safe at all.
Safe. Because, again, BDSM, safe, sane, and consensual.
Yes. It's
consensual, but I'm not positive about the other two.
Yep.
Because it's like, they're just flying by while we were watching this movie, I gave Kayla a suggestion of, like, this would have been easier. This would have solved a bunch of the problems, which is the fact that, like, she's in this sex shop buying all of this stuff, right? But you never see anyone in the sex shop.
No.
I have an idea. What if the sex shop had a worker or an owner in like her, like she's older, she's like slightly in her like 40s or like 30s or 40s, and she's like, oh, you're into this, so she's new to it, and she's like, okay, and she sort of, I don't need a mentoring montage,
right?
But like whenever she tells her something, it's like, oh,
this is how you
some
use
tips.
this.
Yeah, here are some tips and tricks of like, this is how this would be used, or what are you into? Oh, you're into this? Use this. Just someone that actually knows what they're doing, so I don't think that these people are actually hurting themselves.
It would have been really great.
That would have been an easy solve, and it just would have take away one of the. I don't need her to like have a full conversation. I don't need to know this woman's sexual history.
Yes.
I just need that, like, oh, if she owns this store, she knows what I will take it for granted that she knows what she's doing. And if she just gives her some tips, I will take it for granted that those are the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And then immediately this problem is gone for me.
I also want to point out there's like another scene, which is like, it's essentially at the end of this weird montage that we're having where they get a new like younger guy employee at their place of work, and essentially is assigned to Seohyun as like, you need to mentor him. And Junyoung gets incredibly upset and jealous at this. And the fact that this new guy is apparently like doing a lot of things wrong and constantly getting yelled at like publicly by Seohyun for it as well. And then he talks to him in the bathroom one day, and he's like, oh, people think that it's bad for me because she's too harsh, but I actually kind of like that because it's like I improve better that way. He
like,
has a massive amount of jealousy because of this.
Like this person, he's a younger employee, and he doesn't like this doesn't seem like he is a sexual thing. Like this is not
this is just like dynamic. This is just straight up like this is he's new to this job and is doing stuff wrong and getting yelled at for doing stuff wrong.
And someone is teaching him, hey, this is how you do your, like, he is an intern.
Yeah.
And he is on orientation.
Yeah.
That is all that this person needs to do.
And this then leads to a scene after, it's essentially they're in their office like at night after everyone has left. And
he confronts her.
He confronts her about it, about how jealous and how jealous and miserable he is or whatever. And so she then proceeds to aggressively yell at him, but the way that she's yelling at him is as if he was doing all of his like work wrong. And then, like, they destroyed the office in the process as well, because they're throwing papers and they're, like, breaking things on everyone's desk while they're doing this. And I'm like, again, this is not the type of behavior you need to be having in your actual professional jobs.
Not just that, but, like, she then proceeds to tell him to take his belt off.
Oh, yes.
And then just whips him with his own belt. In the office.
Yep.
I want to point out that, like, at least the last time they were in the office, all she did was, like, blindfold him and have him sit in a chair. And, like, talk to him.
Yeah.
That's weird.
And now we're actively destroying the office and, like...
Now we're both actively destroying the office and actively engaging in, like, what essentially can be seen as sexual harassment in the workplace.
Oh, yeah. It's bare minimum like sexual misconduct or whatever in the workplace for sure.
Bare minimum.
Yeah.
And so then we get to our 12th reason. We're almost at the end.
We're almost there.
At our 13th reason. Our 12th reason is this man into everything? Because we want to go down the list of kinks that these people go through and seem to be enjoying.
Yes.
Because we start with the pet play.
Yep.
Which is a lot.
Yep.
He seems to have a foot fetish.
He does have a foot fetish for sure. There's for this movie, a lot of foot stuff in this movie as well. A lot of that.
In this movie. Not just the stepping on.
No, like
but then
bare
there's
feet.
There's a scene where like he's just, I think he's like bondage to the bed, and she's standing over him with like her foot on his face.
Yeah, I hated that. I hated that a lot.
That one made me very uncomfortable. Then we get to the one where like just in the scene where his ex-girlfriend, in the dream sequence with the ex-girlfriend, it starts with him, like, kissing Seohyun's foot and then up her leg, and then he looks up and it's his ex-girlfriend's face, and I'm like, I don't like this.
I'm like,
that was very early in this movie. That was very early in this movie, and it was a sign of things to come, and I hated it.
It was, for sure.
So then, what else is it? We have the ball gag and the wax in the bathtub.
Yeah, and then
that happens.
Yeah, and then there was the whipping.
There's a lot of different whipping,
different
too.
types of whipping. Yeah.
Then we get to like a longer scene, which is like full public humiliation, where like essentially she it's handcuffs them together.
Yeah.
Like wrist to wrist with like a little chain between them so they have a little bit of movement, and then just makes them go on a date out in public.
Yeah.
And like, okay, and like they try to keep it a secret, but eventually, because this is also the scene where the friend is maybe getting raped.
Yes. This is also where she tells him that she wants them to date like for real and not just be in like a weird contract thing, and he says, I don't date people, or
which
whatever.
Again, that's not a relationship you two should be having while handcuffed together. There's a weird power dynamic there because she has the key.
Yep. There's a lot because they had a hint of this scene in the trailer for this movie, and I thought that because the trailer was like so much edited in the way that this was gonna be like a rom-com, that this was gonna be like just like a weird like hijinks gone wrong and everything. But the way it ends up being is essentially they're having these serious conversations or whatever, and then it gets flustered and they get found out and everyone's judging them from them, and then maybe the friend's being raped, and it's just like a whole...
It's a lot.
It's a lot. There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, it's just a whole lot of a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So... It was at this point that Kayla and I made an observation about this man.
Yes. Because we were also, when Sammi was watching this, having a much more engaging conversation on the side that was semi, but not really related to the movie at all.
Not at all, but then we made a realization. So we were talking about our own sexuality for a while.
Yep.
And we came to the conclusion that, is this man asexual?
Because I think this man is probably asexual, because...
He seems to be getting no sexual he, in a weird way, he doesn't genuinely seem to want to have sex with this woman.
No.
He seems to like her, but I do not think sex is a part of this equation.
Because I don't think he ever sees her in a sexual manner, and even at the end of the movie when they're entering like an actual relationship, I still don't think he fully is seeing her in a sexual way. I think he's agreeing probably to have sex with her in the future because she likes her and everything, and is willing to do that for her. But that still means he's asexual. Like, that doesn't change him being asexual.
Exactly.
And he probably had I think because it's implied that him and his like ex-girlfriend probably also were having sex, but he was probably doing that because it was like a social norm, and he was afraid of like, obviously, because and his weird complex and everything. He didn't want to like force all of that upon to her and everything. So
and, that is a very common thing for an asexual to like. Being asexual does not mean you will never have sex.
No.
Generally speaking, asexuals you will probably end up having sex in your life, and that doesn't mean you're not asexual.
Yeah, because the main thing with asexual is like it's more so being okay sex with never having sex.
Exactly.
It's not a thing that you need to have in your life. Yeah,
exactly. And again, it's not that he ever seems to be, because there a lot of things about asexuality is that there's a lot of broad spectrums about asexuality of like, he seems to be quite sex positive asexual.
Yes.
Whereas he is very open to having sex, but it is not for his own benefit.
Right.
It is mainly for the benefit of the person he is in a relationship with. But again, this also just might be a bad movie. They did not think this closely about this man's sexuality.
100%.
That is not intentional.
This was not. I 100% believe that was not the intention of his character or this movie. But I do believe that like what we are given from this character, he probably asexual. Makes a lot of. It honestly tracks pretty well.
It all kind of tracks. So now we are at our 13th reason.
Yep.
Which is that this movie somehow made me fully on board with a corporation.
With the corporate
I was on the corporation.
100% on the side of the company. The
corporation was correct.
They were 100%
The corporation
correct.
should have fired these two. So, at the end of the film, someone... we find out who, but it really doesn't fucking matter.
I don't care. Like, do not care in the slightest.
Releases audio in the company of those two having their, like, whipping session at work. The audio is released, and the company is just like,
this is
right.
wildly inappropriate to be doing
What
at a
the
place
fuck?
of work. Also, we work with children. Like, that's not okay.
All
for you
of
to
those
be
are
doing
happening
this here. Yeah.
Like, at no point, like, there might be some judgment of, like, hey, what the fuck are you doing, period. Like, it's, like, like, kink shaming of, like, this BDSM relationship. But mainly, it is the fact that you people are at, like, it doesn't matter if this was not sexual.
No.
This was a very inappropriate relationship to have at a place of work right now.
Because also,
and I hated it.
Because it's like, I don't know if we're supposed to feel bad for them when they're in this disciplinary hearing and then all of the company executives are deciding on what to do and sort of questioning over the exact nature of their relationship as well. And like, it's somehow relevant if they're in a sexual relationship or not, or if it's non-sexual, which it's honestly does not matter. And this is where they like finally proclaim their love for each other, is in this disciplinary hearing with the company executives. He finally decides that like, yes, I do want to actually be in a relationship. And I'm like, cool, I don't care. You should still both be fired. Like,
yeah, it's because at no point in this show are they actually saying like, no, you cannot be in a romantic relationship. No. Like, because this isn't a company that has like a because like if they did, one of them would have
policy,
to they would have to transfer.
Right.
Which again, maybe they shouldn't work together. You've proven what they do when they're together.
Yep.
But it's mainly just this company is specifically angry with the fact that this happened not in their private lives.
No.
But at work.
At a company property.
Like, yes.
And like on actively destroyed an office like space
possibly
as well.
On company time too. Yeah. Because it doesn't seem like they were still possibly, I don't know if they're hourly or salary, but they were still clocked in. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh shit, this is wrong.
This is bad.
I hate this.
Everything about what you're doing is bad. Like, I don't, it has nothing to do with your kinks. It's just, this is not a thing you should be doing at work, regardless.
You should do at the office.
Yeah.
I hate it. So, just generally speaking, we were on corporate Korea side. And honestly,
that's our takeaway from this movie, is we agreeing with the corporate Korea.
Honestly,
here we are.
First, they were right. These people shouldn't have done what they did.
No, not at all.
These people should be fired.
Definitely deserved to be fired. It's just wild to me.
And they weren't even fired.
No, they weren't.
That's the thing. They were penalized, and I don't know if I'm supposed to feel bad for them that I think she was on, like, I think he got, like, a suspension for a little bit, and she got, like...
I think he got a 6-month suspension, and she got, like, a 3-month pay cut or something. It was something similar to that, if that's
3-month pay cut, and I think the pay cut was because they destroyed the office so that they had to pay that back. And I'm like, y'all that's a slap on the wrist.
And I'm
that's
like...
a slap on the wrist.
Honestly, wouldn't be like they should probably both be fired. They need to be fired from that.
They should be
like,
fired.
That's 100% a fireable offense.
It should be a fireable offense. Like, I'm sorry. Like, these people were like, and I get that it's like, oh, no one was supposed to find out. That still happened on company property.
Like,
you don't know if there's security cameras.
Yeah.
I don't care. Don't do this at your job. Go home.
It's
if this happened at their house, this wouldn't happen. That's the thing. This company was being perfectly reasonable of just don't do it on company property.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, fair.
But because for some reason he's in some public humiliation, we have to drag it into the workplace. So
also, don't put your public humiliation on other people. Like, this is your job.
Yeah.
Do your fucking job.
Please.
Don't make your coworkers uncomfortable.
Yeah, please don't force that onto people unwillingly, because then it's like,
that's what he did to her. Yeah. And look where he ended up.
This is what we did with this entire movie was that. So, bad. This is a bad time.
So essentially this is our review of the Netflix original movie Love and Leashes.
Yes, truly something.
Choices were made.
A lot of choices were made here.
All of them were bad.
I probably hate Lee Junyoung as an actor even more now than I already did after Imitation, so that's great for him.
Oh, wonderful for him. I personally so we were having this conversation last night where I feel like, because looking at the caliber of actor in this, Lee Junyoung is sort of the standout in the wrong way, because like Seohyun, she's here, Girl Generation, like she has also been in a bunch of shows, like she has
does acting
star
a
power.
decent amount. Yeah,
she does acting a decent amount. And, like, a bunch of the actors around her, like, you just have decent, like, they're good and they're recognizable from other things. And then you have, Lee Junyoung.
Yep.
Who just seems out of place. And I think it is because there are not many Korean actors who would be willing to put themselves in this situation. And I think I understand why.
I understand why. Because this movie, for just generally being in this movie, is public humiliation for the actor who is playing this role. And I don't think there are a lot of actors, if any, who would lower themselves to this role, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, absolutely not. Because honestly, I think that this movie should have gone to, because imagine this have gone to, like, not to say that this man rejected this. I have no idea if he was offered it, but you have to think of Netflix's golden boy
Song Kang,
who has been in, I'm going to put it out there, Novelera, Nevertheless, Sweet Home,
Love
Alarm, and Forecasting Love and Weather, which is their new one. He's been in 5 Netflix originals, some of the most popular ones. He's possibly going to be in Sweet Home 2 if that ever gets made.
Yep.
He's going to continue being in Netflix originals. He's been in so many of these Netflix originals.
I am almost positive they probably offered this role to Song Kang, because Song Kang is also not, like, Nevertheless, which is entirely about sex. The entire show is about sex.
But I do not think that Song Kang would be willing to bark for
I don't think Song Kang is here to be in this movie and then bark like a dog for a lot of the major scenes.
Love Song Kang as an actor. I mean, you watch Nevertheless, and we're not a fan.
He's not a great actor. I was going to put that out there. Song Kang's not a great actor.
And also, I watched Love Alarm, and I still hate it to this day. And haven't watched another Song Kang show since, I think, because of Love Alarm.
I've seen, like, quite a few of things that Song Kang has been in. He's not very good. Like, he's a kind of one of those actors who are like a cardboard cutout. And so, honestly, it's like, it's weird to even imagine him in this role, because I don't even know if he has, like, the emotional, I
think he could have done it. This role isn't that difficult.
Well, the thing is it's
you
like,
just have to be willing to humiliate
Yeah, because the thing is like, plays like such stoic, like, cold characters, and I'm not sure if he has the acting like emotional depth for it, because it's so different than the stuff that he does.
Fair, because then you have Lee Junyoung, who I don't think has the emotional depth to really play a cold character without it seeming
This
stupid.
is the most, like, emotion I've ever gotten out of Lee Junyoung in anything he's ever been, because he plays the exact same, like, boring, cold, stupid character in Imitation and Let Me Be Your Knight. So he's doing nothing there.
But also he's really bad at it.
He's really bad at that. And then it's like, but now I've seen him in one thing where he has, like, emotional, like, depth, and this is what it is. Like,
and it's like not
and it's
well
not
done.
good.
I just don't know if he's picking bad projects. Because at least what I'll give Song Kang is that for his, like, he plays the same role, he's pretty good at it. I think it's just the shows are just, like, going in directions.
Yeah. It's like he has, like, one role that he does, like, pretty well, and he's played that role in everything.
Over and over.
Yeah.
I haven't, but mind you, neither of us have seen Sweet Home.
I've seen a little bit of Sweet Home, which is, like, it's different, but it's not. It's honestly, that character not super different than his other roles. It's just it's just in, like, an action setting now, but he's playing a very similar type.
Because he seemed kind of pathetic in that.
Yeah.
Not pathetic acting. The character seems a little pathetic.
Character's definitely a little bit pathetic, but it's like it's still in, like, the, like, with not a lot of emotional depth kind of a way.
Cool.
Yep.
But just generally speaking, I do think that there were probably other people that this show could have gone to. And I don't
think there were really many, if anyone else, to do it. Yeah.
Because, like, you think about a lot of these Netflix actors, and even just, like, the bigger actors in Korea, like, who would be willing to do it? Yeah. Like, I'm trying to think of someone who's gonna willingly put themselves in this situation of, like,
because for Seohyun it's not as bad, because this is not an embarrassing role for Seohyun really at all.
Not
like
at all.
She's coming away from
fine.
this, like, perfectly fine. But, like, his role specifically, it's like, I do not think there are many people out there who want to play this role to begin with.
No, not really. I don't think that anyone is.
I honestly just think he just picks bad things to be in. Like, I think he just picks bad projects or is offered bad projects.
Fair, and he just sort of takes them.
And he just takes them and he does stuff with them, but they're just bad to begin with. So there's like...
Because the other thing is, I feel like we have seen a lot of Lee Junyoung recently.
We have.
But also, we have made decisions to watch bad shows recently.
Which is also
Considering,
true.
I think, the fact that for the most part, most people will never watch Love and Leashes or Imitation or Let Me Be Your Knight, because those are not necessarily big... they're not the biggest of shows. They're not very well known. They're not very highly rated.
The people who are watching those shows are K-pop fans, essentially, and the people who are watching dramas who are only there to watch like K-pop idols, to be honest, don't have great taste in dramas to begin with, so they don't see
and
the
also,
problems with them.
I don't think they're also there not for Lee Junyoung. I know people that watched Imitation were there for
the other people,
our ATEEZ boys,
ATEEZ and SF9, yeah.
They were there for Huyoung, for Channy, for Sunghwa, for San, for Yoonho, and for...
That's the same thing with Let Me Be Your Knight, too. They are there for the other people who are there besides him.
And he is just playing the boring main role.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
He is there for necessity's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Because also, I'm sorry, yes, he was K-pop idol, but he was in...
He was not a New Kiss
for,
Long.
Like, a comeback.
Was not a New Kiss Long at all.
He is not an original UKISS member. He's too young to be an original UKISS member.
Yeah.
UKISS is ancient.
His longest, like, really K-pop activities were in UNV, and that group was not really that successful at all, so...
No, either. Yeah. Again, I hope that this, like, he starts choosing better roles.
I don't know if I have a lot of hope for that, considering his track record. The last 3 shows I've seen him in are not good at all.
Fair. But, like, there's always a possibility, and I'm hoping for it because, dear God, this is almost painful.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've started watching, I watched a bit of Let Me Be Your Knight, and I watched all of Imitation. This is the most, and Love and Leashes is the most painful out of all of them.
It really is.
I think mainly because the other ones are more ensemble pieces. For as much as in Imitation he was the main role, I could still have, like, Yoonho and his buddy in the corner. That was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was just a few things you could latch onto in Imitation that were, like, a little better.
There were
and
something.
There's more of an ensemble piece.
Yeah.
As opposed to this, which is just...
It's just, like,
it's
what?
There is one,
why?
That's the thing about...
But
that's
why?
the thing about movies. You got one plot.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one plot, and I don't like the one plot.
Yeah, the main plot, bad. So there was no saving that from the beginning.
No, because that's the thing of, like, this is why we mainly now have gone to dramas and not so much to movies, because you got more variety in the dramas.
Oh yeah.
The movies, it's the one plot, and it's 2 hours of that.
It's 2 hours of something, and if the main plot isn't good, then it's like, well, here we are.
We're screwed.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so that's been Love and Leashes in all of its...
Ugh.
I don't
Glory?
know. Glory? Question mark? Not... Or, I don't know.
Not at all.
Not at all glory at all. Hooray. So glad we rearranged the podcast schedule for this movie.
I'm so happy. We did so well.
Yep. So we are on all major podcasting platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We also have a YouTube channel where we post all of our episodes along with a extra fun clip video every week. And we also have a Instagram and a Twitter that are linked in the description of every episode. And with that, we will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.